some people haven't found the right application platform to make money with their skills because they're applying it to the wrong thing. And all you have to do is meditate, reflect, ask yourself, like, what are the things that appear natural to me? And how do I just apply them in a different context where there's an opportunity to make more money?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the box we always talk about with right person, right seat.
Yeah.
Right? What do you love doing? What are you great at?
Yeah.
And it would be great if you could have been a musician because you loved it, you were passionate about it, you were really skilled at it. But there's a point at which you have to say, okay, this is not going to be the way I make money, but it doesn't mean it can't be a part of my life, right?
Yep.
And so we can apply those same things that you love about music, the things that you're great at, apply it to somewhere where you can make money, and then you can use that freedom that you get through that money to also enjoy that craft and that side of what you love.
So today we're going to talk about what are the beliefs that hold people back when it comes to making money. What are the things that people commonly hear from society about, money and why money is not a good thing, So the ultimate goal of this is to debunk a lot of these bullshit kind of phrases that society has brainwashed us with that basically imprison us and turn a lot of people into victims financially. And so we're gonna unpack this today. I got the one and only Brandon Bowers, who's going to be diving in. Brandon's the COO of SMB Team, and he is what you would call money hungry. So it's going to be a great podcast because if you want to learn
I'm the
about
great speaker. Yeah.
you want to learn about anyone, you want to learn from someone who's money hungry about this topic. So what we did was we looked up what are some of the most commonly held. We have 10 of the most common negative beliefs that people have about money. We're going to unpack them, but we're going to start with the overall psychology before we go into those 10. So I want to start with you. What do you think is the main psychological mindset limiter that causes someone to go through life year after year after year after year and not make more money and never see at least a path to somehow, some way increase their financial status in the world?
I guess just from people I've encountered over the years that I've seen have that, mindset and path in life is everything they do, they view in a pessimistic way. So it's the woe is me attitude, this happened to me. They don't have control over their own destiny. Everyone encounters problems and issues and challenges along the way. I mean, we encounter challenges every day in business, right? Mm-hmm. But we can sit there and say, well, this sucks. This happened to us. What are we going to do now? It's not fair. Life's not fair. Mm-hmm. Or we can just say, you know what? I choose to not let this affect me. I choose not to let this determine my outcome, and I'm going to take back control. So I think the people that I've seen be most successful in life have an optimistic mindset, and they choose their own destinies. They take control of their lives and their actions, and they don't let things get in their way of success. Even when they get knocked down, they just get back up. So I think I've heard it many times, when you look at successful entrepreneurs, the biggest determination of success are those that have the grit and just pure determination. Because you're going to get knocked down a lot, and you have to get back up.
That's why I think it was yesterday, I posted on my Facebook and LinkedIn that nobody's coming to save you. I don't know if you saw that, but the whole election and everything, is the world going to burn down, if so-and-so wins? And there's certainly a lot at stakes with this election.
Sure.
So it's not like I'm dismissing that. But the Wednesday after the election, we already know what we're doing that day. It's all scheduled, right? And regardless of who wins, I'm going to have to adjust to it. You're going to have to adjust to it, right? So to operate, yes, who wins a presidential election, there's definitely an impact from it. But a victim mindset is, what's this person going to do for my life, right? A abundance mindset is, I don't really freaking care. I do care,
Sure,
because there's high stakes in a presidential election. I care, but ultimately, whatever the hell happens, it's going to happen, and I'm going to have to adjust to it, right? And that's that, the mindset of, that adaptability. I think one of the biggest reasons is really self-worth. It's just like, do you have an expectation of being wealthy? What picture do you have in your mind about wealth? I know for me, like, I never really had a picture in my mind to be wealthy. Like when I was growing up, I was just like class clown, dirt bike dude. Like I was literally voted class clown. I think it was my last year in high school, and I had no wealth intentions at all. I just wanted to be liked by people. And it actually was extremely painful. It was like I was constantly not being myself. I was constantly trying to be someone I wasn't just to be liked, because I had so much issues psychologically at a younger age, just because I went through a lot in my family and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I actually learned from someone who was wealthy where I actually thought for the first time to myself, like, maybe I'm worth it. Maybe I can become wealthy. And that first person was actually, and I don't even know how wealthy he is. I've been able to interview him like 2 or 3 times, Brian Tracy.
Oh,
right? Now, he's probably worth a couple $1 million. And he's an OG of personal development, sales, right? So, that was the first, him and Brendan Burchard were the first 2 people I ever listened to that were like multimillionaires talking about personal development. And for whatever reason, when I first heard that first Brian Tracy tape, it was like high impact communication. And I was so secretive about it. Every day to and from college, I would secretly listen to high impact communication from Brian Tracy. And he would say, like, if you learn how to communicate well, you can make a lot of money. And he does this funny thing on his YouTube videos where he turns his head. It's like, if you can learn how to communicate, you can make a lot of money. And once you learn how to do this, and it's just like...
Now, why was it secretive? Why were you doing it secretive?
Because I thought it meant I had a problem. I didn't want to expose that this is where I think self-help gets a bad rap, is because help is in the nomer.
Sure.
It's in the name of it, right? But it's more like self-advancement. It's not like help, because help indicates, typically when we think of help, we think someone's in pain, I need to help them, right? Someone has something bad going on, I need to help them. And I did have a lot of bad shit going on at that time. So that's probably why I was like, feeling that way. But yeah, that was the first time where I was like, maybe I can make, a couple $100,000. And it was just at that time I got a job in insurance at Ace Insurance. And I was like, this is not going to work. Like, this insurance business is, I felt like I was completely trapped. So I start practicing high impact communication from Brian Tracy. That led to, wow, I learned so much from this free training that was on Spotify, which is crazy to think that Brian Tracy was on Spotify that early. Because that was like, I don't even know, maybe over 10 years ago. Crazy. Wow. And it was just like, maybe someone else uploaded it, but I would just like eat it up. And then that led to me doing a search on YouTube for something about like positive thinking.
Okay.
And something popped up from Brendan Burchard. There's like piano music in the background. It's like a black and white video, and it's like it's like this inspirational background music. And I was like, wow, this is really amazing stuff. And I looked up Brendan Burchard. I was like, this guy's got to be worth millions, And then that led to me going on to YouTube again, which is why, like, part of the reason that I want to restart podcasts is because, like, content changed my life. Like, the video I found on the third video I found on YouTube, personal development based, was when I typed in sales strategy or sales tips or something. Video from Grant Cardone pops up. I didn't even know what sales was. I'd never done sales ever, right? And I see a video from Cardone, right? Yeah, it's crazy. And you know what's actually funny is I had this chip on my shoulder about sales because I had this, she was like a advisor, I think, in my graduating class at Temple in the risk management and insurance thing. That's what I majored in. Crazy.
I don't think you've ever shared that before.
Yeah, dude, it's
I
crazy.
didn't know that.
I mean, it was such unhappiness. But this person was an advisor there, and she looked me in the face one day and said, "I don't think you'll ever be good at sales." And she was supposed to be like a reader of people, like this all-wise person that like would consult everyone in our department. So it really like hurt me. I actually remember exactly where the statement was said it was actually in a class, and she talked to me to the side of the class. I remember the exact setting. And she said, "I don't think you'll ever be good at sales," right? So fast forward, it's crazy how things work. It's probably like 2 or 3 weeks after that I find this sales tip. I typed in sales tips, right? And I see this video from Grant Cardone. And the only belief shift in this video that I accumulated was that I must embrace sales in order to be successful. And I had never started a business. I didn't even know what that meant, right? But thank God I learned from Grant that overall concept, because as I started seeing a potential different path for me instead of following the chain of insurance, like going down that rabbit hole, I started being able to ask myself, like, what does he mean? Like, sales is a requirement of anything you ever do. You're going to have to sell yourself to get hired for a job. You're going to have to sell yourself to, even if you want to buy a property, you have to sell yourself
sales
to buy.
Is in everything.
I mean, I didn't even know what it meant because I'd never bought a property.
Sure.
So for me, that was the first moment where I associated to myself, there are people out there that are wealthy, and these people are following a completely different playbook than what I've been taught in school. That's the first bucket. Mm-hmm. And then B, I can control this wealth thing if I learn sales, right? So this then gets, planted in my subconscious mind, and like most people do when they learn something new, basically abandoned it for,
of course,
6 months because my subconscious mind just was rejecting it. I had no reference experiences. And then, as Steve Jobs says, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward, right? So, meaning the experiences that you accumulate throughout your life, in the moment you accumulate an experience, in that moment, you don't know when you're going to use that experience in the future, right?
Yeah.
So, like a quick example of this was when I quit my job in insurance, I started a company. I wrote a book for 8 months and called it a company. It was called Worry 180. And I bought this online training course from Eben Pagan. That's his name.
Don't know that name. Okay.
Brilliant internet marketer. Bought this course on how to sell, create, and promote a information product, right? And that was what Worry 180 was. So I followed the course to a T. It was amazing. And when I basically finally launched my book, no one bought it because I didn't have any money to promote it and I didn't know how to sell, right? Well, fast forward to today, we run a multi-8-figure, coaching and consulting business as half of our business, right? Mm-hmm. And when I first started the coaching business, everything I learned from that initial course that I bought when I was unemployed, when I quit the insurance job, everything that I learned from that course was used to create the foundation of our initial coaching program, right? So little did I know when I learned these seeds that were planted in my mind that maybe I can control my wealth and maybe I can control that by learning sales. I didn't know how I was going to use that into the future until I failed launching that book, Worry 180, and I asked myself, why did I fail? Oh, Grant said it's because I didn't know how to sell. shit, he's right. I spent 8 months writing the best book ever that no one bought.
So were you connecting the dots at the time the book failed, or when you launched the coaching program?
No, I was connecting the dots. It takes a while to connect the dots. I guess slow learner, but yeah, it was when I started the coaching program. So it was the second year in SMB. So yeah, so I think self-worth, had I not learned from someone who was wealthier than me, I would have never accumulated the belief that I can make money.
I guess self-worth is kind of the same, but confidence, right? It sounds like confidence, which
How about
I think
for
most
you?
people would be completely surprised that at one point you were maybe not confident in sales.
Yeah, but what about you?
else.
Did you have? How did your mind open up to, I don't know, that you could make more money than the average person? Like, where did that?
Well,
come?
it's interesting because I was thinking when you mentioned about the professor, that kind of seems like maybe it gave you a little chip on your shoulder, right? Which is usually a good thing. I mean, there's a lot of athletes out there. I'm a shorter guy, so I always root for the short athletes out there killing it. We've got a running back on Pitt's team right now that's, list him at 5'8", he's really like 5'6", right?
Yeah.
Probably put a chip on his shoulder, and the guy's one of the best running backs in all of college football right now. So I think that's usually something that helps drive somebody forward. And maybe I had that a little bit just because my background was a little bit different. It was kind of more the opposite of what you said. Like, I was voted most likely to succeed. So I was always like the one that was like...
Are you being serious?
Yeah. So I was always like, you're going to do
That's
great.
That's fucking awesome.
Which is great
How
in certain
did
ways.
that feel in the moment? That's freaking awesome.
I mean, it was weird because so my background is like my family didn't have a lot of money. They were just hardworking, middle class, lower middle class, just very blue collar, a lot of military in my family. And I was like sounds maybe like arrogant saying it, but like the golden child, right? It was like when I was always good in school. I was the first grandkid, right? So I kind of had an advantage in that sense. But I think looking back, I mean, maybe that was like when we say about the confidence and stuff, right? Like because I was the first grandchild, I had probably a lot more of attention, right? Which probably gave me confidence and support at a young age, which built my confidence at a younger age. Some of these things I think are just also innate qualities you have, right? Of like that grit and determination. But I think I was always like, okay, I want to be the one that, makes it. I want to be the one that really succeeds. And so I just always had that chip on my shoulder, like it's going to happen. Like I got to make this happen. So even if it didn't matter about the background, and we'll probably tie it to some of the topics later, but I was just going to find a way to make it happen. Even if it didn't seem like it was easy, right? So
did
that
you have
was
a
kind
mentor?
of my initial. I did at different times. I mean, when
like the first person that opened your mind up to specifically the belief of making more money.
Of making money, the person I was thinking was probably not somebody that making money. I mean, it wasn't focused on money, but we had an attorney that helped my uncle in his divorce, and he was a local, well-known man. He actually ran the children's plays. He was very active in the community. And he kind of became a mentor at a young age. I used to shadow him in court all the time, go to his office, and I always thought I wanted to be an attorney. That was like what I wanted to do. That's how I was going to break through and make my wealth. So he was kind of the first one maybe where I saw it because he was entrepreneurial in many ways, had his own firm, and I saw the success he had and the money he was making. So that I think maybe gave me the... it was the first time I was like really being able to see somebody who was really successful and kind of be around them and spend time with somebody that had that type of money and success. So maybe that was probably the first person that helped instill that into me. And then I saw it in bits and pieces in college just through, I went to Pitt, so I'm in a city and I got to interact with individuals. I was very involved in many different things in business and politics, so I got to be around a lot of individuals where it kind of first opened my mind like, wow, I came from this small little town. This is a different type of money, right? People actually have a lot more money. And then I ended up getting the custom suit business, as you know. And then it just opened my mind to a whole different world that I never knew existed. When you hear about people like the rich people making money and whatnot, when you don't come from money, you can't fathom or understand what it really means or what it's like, how much is really there. And so when I started seeing the way some of these people lived, the number of houses they had, how big their houses were, how many cars they had. I had a client that had, two or three yachts, a couple planes, 96 cars, and 14 homes.
Jeez.
So when you see that, you're like, okay.
Okay, so that person, quick question on this, and then we're going to go into the 10 unknown, mysterious beliefs that are commonly held beliefs about money. So that person with 96 cars, how would you describe them? Abundance-minded, happy, upbeat, energetic, positive, or the opposite? Negative, skeptical.
No, I mean, always had energy. He was an older gentleman, always energetic. He knew what he wanted. So confidence level was there, like we had discussed. Definitely confident. Knew what he wanted. Was very direct. I've noticed that very successful people, they don't beat around the bush. They don't, tiptoe. They're very direct on what they want. They know what they want, and they go get it. He's always a very nice individual. Never arrogant or, always treated me great. But was just constantly going. Didn't slow down. And I know he was also a very big family person. I mean, he built a home out in the kind of the country outside of Chicago in Indiana, and would spend a lot of time down there with family. So he still prioritized things that really mattered. But he was just immensely successful because he had a few different businesses, and that just, when I saw that type of wealth, I was like, okay, I know I can at least get a piece of what this guy has, right? Like, if somebody can have that much, then there's a lot of money out there to be had by everybody.
Think the word that comes to mind when you describe this person, and a lot of the successful people that I've met, is relentlessness.
Yeah.
Just inability to turn off, inability to be stopped. And I had another thought I want to share before we go into these 10. There was a point in time where my only primary focus in life was dirt biking. Fast forward, there was a point in time after that where my only primary focus was music, right? When I was in a band. And both of these things I absolutely loved doing, right? I loved it. When I played music, I loved it. When I rode dirt bikes, I loved it in the moment. But then there was always this awakening moment where I'd look at my bank account and I'd go, shit, it's getting a little bit harder to love this, because I'm running out of money. And we had this one show that was like a Battle of the Bands, and we won Battle of the Bands. It was like in Allentown or something. And we had this one show. We got all these people to show up, and literally we lost like $1,000, which was like everything. Like, that was a lot of money when I had.
Was that because of promoting it? Like, how much did you
because
promote
promoting it, travel, food, lodging, like it basically, even with what we got in ticket sales, like we lost like 500 to 1,000 or something like that. And that was where I started thinking, maybe life's about not just loving what you do. Maybe it's about loving what you do within a parameter that you can make money in, right? And that's what started opening my mind, is like, all right, well, wait a second. What are the things that made me love dirt biking? What are the things that made me love music? Okay, well, dirt biking, I love taking risk. I'm a risk taker, right? Now, you can't connect the dots looking forward, only backward. I didn't know that would become a huge puzzle piece of entrepreneurship, right? Why did I love music? Well, I love being the front-facing person. I love being...
And probably creative.
I love presenting. I love being creative. I love creating things out of thin air, right? And what I didn't realize was that my application platform, right? I had these two ways I was expressing myself, but the platform through which I expressed myself, music and dirt biking, were, for me, dead ends. And for whatever reason, and I'm sure other people could have succeeded under my same circumstances, but for me, they were just dead ends. And I think that's another really big thing that kind of piggybacks off of belief, is some people haven't found the right application platform to make money with their skills, because they're applying it to the wrong thing.
Right.
And all you have to do is, meditate, reflect, and ask yourself, like, what are the things that appear natural to me, and how do I just apply them in a different context where there's an opportunity to make more money? I don't know if you ever had an experience like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the box we always talk about with right person, right seat.
Yeah.
Right? What do you love doing and what are you great at?
Yeah.
And there's somebody I heard just recently, an entrepreneur, that they talked about, like, it would be great if you could have been a musician because you loved it, you were passionate about it, you were really skilled at it. But there's a point at which you have to say, okay, this is not going to be the way I make money. But it doesn't mean it can't be a part of my life, right? And so we can apply those same things that you love about music, the things you love or that you're great at, the skills that you mentioned, apply it to somewhere where you can make money, and then you can use that freedom that you get through that money to also enjoy that craft and that side of what you love. So, yeah, I wish I could remember who it was that said that, but yeah, I think it's a great point that, it would be great if we could all be professional athletes or musicians or all the things we aspire to when we're children, but if we can, like you said, connect those dots backwards, and we'll maybe get into it later with the education piece, but I think that's where we really need to focus children in school. Like, one of the things I think we do a disservice to the kids in school is we don't help them identify those things correctly, right? We put out, pipe dreams, and you got to go do this, you got to go do that, and if you really took a look at what people are great at and what they love doing, starting with that as opposed to, like I said, I always wanted to be an attorney. Right? Now, I didn't have the misconception that most people had around law, that, most people see lawyers on TV, they watch the show Suits, a trial ends in a week, and, they did all these amazing things, and life is easy. They don't see the research that, the attorneys and paralegals have to do behind the scenes, all the reading, all the writing. There's a lot of work. Luckily, because my mentor, I got to see a little bit behind the scenes, so I knew it wasn't all glitz and glam. And I still thought I was going to do it through college, and then more so in college, I just started doing more entrepreneurial things, and that's when I kind of realized, that's when I started to realize, actually, that maybe business was more my thing. Oddly enough, when I was young, I always wanted to own a law firm at some point. So I always knew kind of business, like, I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Weird.
But then when I got out of school, one of my first jobs was at a company that was a real estate development company, but we ended up opening multiple businesses. And so that was my first, true experience in entrepreneurship. And that's when I realized that was, my passion was more of creating and growing. And so while I loved the law, I loved the idea of it, I was passionate just about learning about law. It was intriguing to me. It was good for, it was challenging mentally. I had a lot of courses in college around, like, legal writing and whatnot. But it wasn't what was going to fulfill me every day. Right? That was just kind of like a weird hobby, I guess, in the sense that I was intrigued by law. Yeah, I think I started to realize what really drove me.
So this is what I just looked up, and when you said the self-education thing, meaning the most important thing that kids should be learning is what they're good at, right? Jim Rohn has a quote, and I just looked it up: "Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune." Right? It's like one of the best quotes ever.
Yeah.
If I were to run school systems, one of the most important classes that I would create is a self-learning class, right? And everyone would use, what Peter Drucker calls feedback analysis. They would do a task, and based on your natural abilities, we would look at the result of that task, right? And after doing 10 to 15 different activities, we would know which one of those 15 things you naturally excelled at, right? And then we would know which 14 of those 15 things you didn't. And then we would go further down that one to validate that you're actually really good at this one of 15 things. And maybe we'd learn, maybe it was just luck. And then we'd go back and retest some of the others that you were above average on. And then we would design the curriculum around expanding on your strengths. There's the whole... I forget the guy's name, but he was some amazing guy. He was an educator in the UK. He has a very big TED talk about it's the concept of that ADHD didn't exist at one point in time.
Right.
It's like an amazing TED Talk I watched multiple times, and it had a big impact on me because I do have attention abundance disorder, as I call it, AAD. I have too much attention on too many amazing things.
I do too.
And when I saw that, I realized that it is true that ADD was invented. All disorders were, at one point in time, didn't exist. And we've just found labeling systems for them.
Sure.
So that we can then prescribe medication, right? There's actually lobbyists that are fighting every single day, month, year to have new disorders labeled so that they can prescribe medications for that disorder.
There's money tied to it.
They want more labels of disorders. But what he used an example of was this girl who was constantly fidgeting in class and had signs of ADD, and they put her on, they wanted to put her on medication and calm her down. And I think it was her mom or a loved one said, well, wait a second, I think that she just wants to dance, and everyone laughed and it was like, what do you mean dance? And turns out they signed her up for dance classes, and she had now a way to express these fidgets, which really was an expression, a natural urge to express herself through body movement, and ended up becoming like a phenomenal dancer and built an entire ballet business and was successful for her entire life. So this person would have been labeled as ADD, put on medication, had someone not spoke up and said, wait a second, this person probably just has a gift in a different area and feels constrained by formal education.
Right. Well, and if you think back, I mean, you mentioned the labels. I never would have thought I had, ADD or ADHD. I don't really know the differences in the details, but the premise of what it was when I was younger, I'm a little bit older than you, but, it was, the kids who are running around class, can't sit still, always bad, not doing well in school. They must have ADD. Let's put them on Ritalin, right? And then we learn more about these things later in life. So it's like, was it mislabeled before? Did we not understand it? Did we just put a label for no reason? I don't know. But, now I read things where I'm like, oh, well, that I read true for that, because there's also the hyper-focus part of it or whatever they talk about. So, but I have so many interests. I can get distracted very easily, but then I can get locked in. We're very similar in that way. And so how was I successful in school then if I potentially also had it, maybe in a different form or whatever else? But like you said, it's maybe we just didn't give the children an opportunity to express what they were really good at. I was lucky to be good at school, and I could hyper-focus on a subject, and I had a good memory. But other kids maybe were way more talented in other areas, and if we had schools that were more flexible and not so rigid, where no, you have to learn math, you have to learn science, this is what you got to do, and you have to get to this level to be successful. That's not necessarily true. There were a lot of kids from my high school that would have been considered not good at school, who are very successful today, have their own businesses, have gone on to careers that they've made plenty of money, way more than oftentimes the people who were the gifted A students.
So good.
So, I think we do them a disservice. I think something around what you're talking about would be amazing, along with a financial literacy course. So people understand finances before they get out in the real world. Yeah.
So here are the 10 most commonly held beliefs. And if we're missing any, let us know after this episode. And we're going to try to, be objective. We're not going to, right wing, left wing this like all the news outlets. We're going to try and be...
Won't sugarcoat it either.
Yeah, we won't sugarcoat it. And we're going to go through the 10 most commonly held beliefs about making money. And we're going to give, why this could be true and why this, potentially could be debunked. And the first one is money is the root of all evil. So I remember hearing this when I was a very young kid. It's crazy how these societal phrases spread.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how the hell does this societal hypnotic programming end up in our brains? But I don't remember where I heard that first. It's just a phrase. Money is the root of all evil. Money is the root of all evil. Okay. Well, I believe that the reason this could be true from one perspective is with the intention of expressing that when someone's motive is to make money, off of something without the simultaneous motive of providing value, they will do things that will make them more money at the expense of other people. That's what I think money is the root of all evil means. Or I think there's a second meaning of it, which is when you get more money, you become more evil. Or, evil enters your life, right?
Yeah.
So I don't, what do you think that actually means?
I think it's more towards the first one is probably where it originated, but I could see where the second definition, adds to that. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that, first of all. Mm-hmm. I believe that the desires, these ill desires of individuals mm-hmm. Are what drives evil, or those evil desires, right? So that is, it's its own thing. Like there is a separation between evil and money. Now, is it true that a lot of people have done evil things to get money? Mm-hmm. Sure, but it's because their desires, it wasn't maybe about the money, it was about what they desired with that money. Was it to just, they wanted fame, they wanted, to buy things to show off, they wanted control over people or things. So it's those other desires that the money was a means to, mm-hmm. But it was the desires that led them to do the things to get that money. Yeah. And I think what happens is it's very easy, particularly nowadays with social media, to keep reinforcing these concepts. And again, it goes back to what we said earlier with the mindset. I heard this a lot growing up, people, because again, I didn't have a lot of money. Our family didn't have a lot of money. A lot of our family friends didn't have a lot of money. So it's an easy thing to say to, I think, make people feel better about themselves that they don't have money and that, well, I don't want to go get money because money's the root of all evil anyway. I'm okay without it.
I think another way to reverse this on its head is money is the root of value. Yeah. Money is the root of value. Would be the opposite of money is the root of all evil. Why would that be true? Well, typically, the people who make the most money have produced bigger value for society than those who don't. Right? It's a very simple way to look at that. How does that make sense? Well, it makes sense because, if somebody is making more money than you, I think Alex Hormozy said this, then they're just better at the game of business than you. So if Kim Kardashian is making more money than me, which she is, she's better at the game of business than me. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter, it just means, and specifically her gift is attention. She is known by millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people. I'm not. And because of how big of I'm probably much better at business analytics and management than her. Doesn't fucking matter though. Because millions and millions and millions of people don't know me. You could sell a $5 product to millions of people, right? And be a billionaire. I mean, that's what she did with Skims or whatever it's called. If you have I have a fundamental belief that if somebody is making more money than me, then they're better than me in some way, right? And that the only caveat is that they're not cutting corners to get there and they did it sustainably, right? Because, we've all heard of like the Sam Bankman-Frieds of the world. And obviously he was not better at the game of business than me because he's in jail, right? So I'm better at the game of business than Sam Bankman-Fried because what he did was not sustainable, right? So when you look at it like this, also, money's the root of all evil. Money, if your intrinsic beliefs are that of providing value, right, then money is just going to be a multiplier on your beliefs, right? If your intrinsic belief is, I want to get money and provide nothing for it, then you're going to multiply that if you get more money, right? You're going to take more from others and give less at a higher rate if that's your intrinsic belief. This aligns exactly with what you said. Money is simply a reflection of your belief system. If you have a bad belief system, unethical, then more money is more evil.
Sure.
But money in and of itself is simply a multiplier towards your internal belief system.
What's interesting is, as you were saying that, it made me think, I wonder how far this goes back, because maybe, if you look to medieval times and all the kings, right? Money was very evil in a sense because kings had all the money.
Yep.
The aristocracy had everything, and it was a very big divide between the rich and the poor, right? And they didn't do anything to help the poor. It was just all the money. So I looked up where this came from or when it came, like how long ago, and it actually said it was derived from a quote in the Bible.
Wow.
And it said,
it is.
For the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah, the love of money.
It's often misinterpreted to mean that all money or wealth is evil. And that's not the case, which I think is now how we hear it and understand it.
Yeah.
But that's not what the original intention was. And it's the love of money, which I think goes to what we're talking about, because when you love money just for money's sake, it's usually not good thing. It's not good intentions. But money is also what helps charities. It's what helps us give money to the poor to be able to put food on their table. It's what helps fund research to have life-saving drugs or all these other things, right? That money can do a lot of good things, but it's about intentions and desires.
Yeah, 100%. Number 2, it takes money to make money. This is the biggest bullshit. I would say this is worse than money is the root of all evil. Because if you look at the Forbes billionaire list, by the way, if you go, I think it's Forbes, right? Yeah, I haven't looked at it in a while. But there was a point where I analyzed every person on that list that ran a service business. I have a sheet somewhere. I should probably pull it up sometime. It's really cool. What I broke down everyone who has a non-technology, non-real estate company, just a service business.
Yep.
And I started looking at common denominators, and the service business people, I could only see 1 or 2 people on the top 500 list that, or I think it might be 1,000. Actually, it's a list of every billionaire, I think. I forget. But almost every service business billionaire that I saw was self-created. That then caused me to probe into this, I think they call it a self-made score on there. And they actually assign self-made scores to billionaires. And statistically, the percent of self-made billionaires, people who earned their own wealth and didn't have it inherited, was north of 80%.
Wow.
And for millionaires, I actually think it's higher. I'm going to double check right now.
Well, as you look that up, I think there's 2 ways to look at that phrase. It takes money to make money. I think most people instinctually think that means you have to be wealthy or rich to be able to make more money. And as you said, that's complete bogus, right? So
70% of the world's billionaires are self-made.
Yeah, so clearly it's bogus,
70%.
right?
And what percent of millionaires are self-made? Percent of millionaires self-made is 88%.
I was going to guess 90.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, 88%, why? Clearly, it's a little bit less likely that you become a billionaire in a lifetime, and therefore there's probably a higher percentage of inheritance. But still, it's 70% That's a 7 in 10 chance that you see a billionaire and they made it themselves, right? It's an 88 in 100 chance. This is from a Fidelity Investments 2017 study. 88% chance that a millionaire is self-made.
Which makes sense because a lot of people become millionaires just by small investments over the years and just being disciplined in their finances, or small business owners.
So the reason I think, first of all, statistically, this is completely false because the majority of people who made a lot of money did it on their own, which means they didn't have money, right?
Yep.
So that's the first prong. And then the second prong is you need money to make money. That's bullshit. Is you need creativity and commitment to make money, right? And by the way, your creativity and commitment goes way further if you have skills that can be multiplied by creativity and commitment, right? So I actually think that's one of the biggest misnomers.
Well, 100% agree. Obviously, the stats prove it. I want to come back to one thing in a second, but just really quickly, that second part of, I think, how people interpret this is there are certain industries where it does require money to launch or grow. Doesn't mean you have to have it. And that's where I think the confusion happens, right? So, for example, Pace Morby, we both, listen to him and follow him.
I have a sub.
You know, and he's all about creative financing. So yes, does it take money to invest in real estate and build a real estate empire? 100%. Does it mean you have to have money? No, and he can show you how to do that. Like he's proven time and time again, you don't have to have that money. So that's where people confuse it. Like just because an industry requires money doesn't mean you have to have it. So that's a big distinction. And then I'm sure you've seen this, but because you're a big Grant fan, what was that show? The Undercover Millionaire or
Undercover Billionaire? Yeah.
Did you? I mean, that proved it right there, right? They got what, like $100, and got thrown out into the middle of nowhere when nobody knew them. They didn't have anything to go off of, and they had to create a business worth $1 million in 90 days or something. And he created a business that he could sell for $5 million in 90 days.
This is the money equation. Skills multiplied by commitment plus creativity.
Exactly.
That's it. If you have shitty skills, then you're going to have to commit way more and be way more creative if you don't have skills in something. Which is, by the way, why people who rip people off tend to not be, intrinsically valuable in the area in which they rip people off. So they resort to highly creative and committed ways of ripping people off. But if you're actually skilled at what you do, you don't have to rip people off because the marketplace will reward you for skills multiplied by creativity and commitment. Next, number 3, time is money. Now, this one's tough for me because this is like actually kind of true, but if we look at this from a physics perspective, like time is not money, right? That's like saying a chicken is a horse.
Right.
They're two different things, right? So like technically it's false. Time is not money. They're two completely separate things. But time can be purchased with money, right?
I also think it's the highest value thing that exists.
Time.
Yeah.
It's probably more valuable.
Yeah.
Right? So let's just do a math equation. We have 100.
Because you can't it's the only thing that you can't get back, right, is time. So I can get more money, I can get more whatever else. So time just has the highest value.
So I work 5,600 hours per week. Did you know that?
No.
Do you think I'm lying?
I'm guessing you're saying you're working around the clock on something, just not on business.
No, I am actually measurably working 5,600 hours per week.
Okay, how?
Because 5,600 hours divided by 140 people, which is how many employees we have at our company, is 40 hours a week. Right? So
you're multiplying through
I'm multiplying through others, right? So, yes, because we have 140 people at our company, I get to work thousands of hours a week, right? So, again, it's like if I can only work, you can only work, 50 or 55 hours a week we probably average, or maybe some weeks 60. But I can't work 100 hours or 160 hours a week. I would have to not sleep, right? So time is not money, but time can be purchased with money.
Well, I also think again, if you just think of it as time is value, right? So, I don't think it's wrong that time is money in a sense. That, like, obviously you could say I could spend this hour doing something productive that's going to make you money, or I could spend this hour playing video games. Right? So there is a trade-off there financially when you make decisions. But it's not to say that every hour should be devoted towards making money. Because like you said, there's trade-offs, right? So there's a point where there's a diminishing return of us working more hours, unless maybe you're like Elon Musk or somebody. But at some point you're not going to have as effective. What was it? Was it Bezos or Amazon? Or I think it's Bezos, right? He doesn't take meetings before like 10 and after 2, or he does one high-value meeting a day, or whatever it is. It's because there's only so much high-value things you can do in one day before your brain is just going to be exhausted and it's going to start diminishing in the impact. So, I think it's
in the beginning, when you when you don't have money, the only asset you have is time.
Sure.
Right? So that in that situation, when you're getting started, yeah, that is actually true because you put in time and money is given to you as a result of the time you put in. Right?
Look at when I first joined.
Yep.
How many nights were we there, till 8, 9 at night?
Yeah.
Way more often than that happens now because we're able to do it, like you said, through others. And we have a bigger team now. But when we were smaller, we had to get it done.
So I'd say time is money is probably more true when you're smaller. When you're getting started in business, right? It's probably more true. And then it probably becomes less true. It becomes more like time. Money buys time once you get bigger.
Yeah.
But the last part of this is that how effective your per unit usage of time will produce more money for you. So if one person swings a hammer all day, and they spend the same number of hours as someone else who spends one of those 8 hours reading about how to create their own construction business and then the other 7 hours swinging a hammer, that 1 hour educating yourself on how to start your own construction business could end up becoming the seed for that person creating their own business, having their own group of 20 or 30 employees, swinging their hammers, because that person decided to spend one of their 8 hours a day investing in themselves. So that time was just more valuable.
Well, and I think it's also there's a speed element in the early phase. So when you're launching, in order to get to a point where you can actually start making money, time is very valuable at that point. It could be more equated to the money because if you just work 6 hours a day, you launched a business, it might take you 6 months to start generating a profit where you can afford to live. Whereas if you just work 12, 14-hour days, maybe you're up and running in a month or two.
Yep. Number 4, the harder you work, the more money you make. Again, this is like a phase thing, right? So there are plenty of people in South Texas installing roofs, sweating, in the heat of summer, heat exhaustion, burning thousands of active calories a day on the brink of exhaustion, right? Landscapers in South Texas and Miami in the heat of summer, guarantee you they work harder every day than I did in starting my own company, right? Guarantee that the harder you work does not guarantee the more money you make because there's too many variables outside of hard work that are you working hard at the right thing, Well,
but you're also comparing two different things. So I would say I would reframe that a little bit, because what you do has a higher upside than what they do.
Yep.
In terms of like the ceiling in income level.
Yep.
So I would say for them, the harder they work could 100% be true.
Yeah, because they could get more hours.
Right, because you get more hours. Because that's, again, my family, we had a lot of union members and, you would work overtime and you get paid double or time and a half and all these different things. So for them, time is money and working harder truly paid off. But when you're running a business, which I think maybe is where our minds tend to go, it's not always the truth, right? There is a point of diminishing return.
I say that like tongue in cheek, my original statement. I worked my freaking ass off when I was in sales at Yellow Pages. Like I worked probably an average of like 14 hours a day when I was on the come up. Like there was only a time for a quick workout. And I was working all day, every single minute of the day when I was on the come up. And when I started SMB, very, very similar. Yep. I mean, it was closer to, it was probably 85 to 90 hours a week, right? And so definitely there is a correlation with hard work and making more money. My point is that there's a phase where that is the number one currency, and then there's a phase where that has a diminishing return, right? So when you're on the come up, when you're going through a breakthrough, when you're trying to learn a new skill, you probably want to veer on the side of working your eyeballs out. Then you go through a period of optimization. A period of optimization is where you look at, where was I wasting time in this grind period where I was working constantly? Where are the areas where I was being inefficient? How can I benefit from stepping back from this and using high-level thinking, right? And you end up going through a period of optimization where you remove the parts of this, hustle period, and you replace it with either a body, like you hire someone to do that thing, right? Or you, automate it, or you just stop doing it, and instead you start focusing on higher value things, and then more money comes in when you focus on higher value things. So I think you probably want to veer. I think laziness is probably one of the top 5 statistical, if you were to really probe into it, laziness is probably one of the top 5 statistical reasons that people don't advance in their lives.
For sure.
Right?
What's the quote around the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is successful people do the things unsuccessful people are unwilling to do.
Yeah.
It's 100% true. The same thing like when I was in sales, when I first started in custom suits, I worked 7 days a week. If clients wanted an appointment at 9 o'clock on a Sunday, I would take it because I wanted to get as many sales as possible.
I was the same way.
But it was how I worked my way up in the company very quickly. So it paid off.
But then there becomes a phase where you and I are now at, in charge of, a rapidly growing company, where if we were still doing that, we would be harming the company. We would make less sharp decisions. When you have 140 people, depending on your decisions, there's higher stakes there. And,
way more responsibility.
It's more slow thinking, whereas when you get started, it's more fast thinking, right?
Yeah.
But the slow thinking is, where you take a longer time to make a final decision, but then once you make the decision, you are definitive about it, and it impacts many, many people. In the beginning stages, you make fast decisions and you just keep steering, based on what the market tells you, and you make another fast decision, right? And over time, it slows down as you get a sensor for what the right decisions are to make,
And you can work all those hours because, again, you don't have to have that fresh brain all the time because they're just little fast decisions, like you said, that only affect you, really.
Yeah.
So it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah.
But now when you have 150 people almost that, all their families included on top of that, right, that your decisions are going to affect, you've got to really be fresh and make sure you understand that responsibility.
Yep. Number 5, so the harder you work, the more money you make. I believe it. I would veer on that being true.
Yeah,
and
I would agree.
There needs to be a point where you need to optimize. Would you agree?
Yeah, again, I think it's just also circumstantial, like in certain things. Even though I still think you can optimize in any of those circumstances.
Yeah.
Because like even in sales, I think if you're a commissioned salesperson, your time is money, and you're going to work harder and make more money.
Yeah.
But there's things you can do that can also optimize with the use of AI and everything else nowadays.
Yep. All right, number 5. This one's going to be easy, I think. Money can't buy happiness. Okay. So, quick story on this. When I had my baby, Cammie, she's going on 10 months old now. Obviously, having a newborn, they don't sleep much in the first couple weeks at least, unless you're lucky and have a great baby. Cammie would wake up 5 times a night, and I had the money to afford a night nurse for every single night for the first, 3 or 4 months of having Cammie, right? So I can't think of a better example, and that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was like somewhere like $500 to $6,500 a month to have this night nurse, or like $5,000 or something. That's a lot of money, right? And I was able to stomach that and do that. That definitely bought me happiness. Definitely bought my wife happiness, right? I'm able to ride my dirt bike and race, and dirt bikes are not cheap, I'm able to travel to wherever I want in the United States to ride my dirt bike, right? Okay, that's another happiness buyer. I'm able to invest anything I want in my personal health, right? If I want to do advanced, genetic testing or health testing, if I want to hire a personal fitness coach, which I have, or a personal nutrition coach, which I have, I can, and I'm able to benefit from that. I'm able to hire personal, and I get happiness from being more healthy, right? So money doesn't buy you happiness. Where does that come from? Is that true? I'm going to hold my belief on that.
Well, I mean, again, I think, I'm going to always go back to kind of how I grew up, because I think I heard some of these sayings, but I think, again, it comes from your circumstances sometimes. So I think sometimes people say that phrase to make themselves feel better because they don't have the money. So they say, well, I'm okay because I'm happy because I have my family and health and all those things, which, look, that is 100% true. When they interview people that are on their deathbeds and they say, what's the one thing, or what's your advice, or whatever, the one thing you regret, it's always, I wish I spent more time with my family, I wish I did this, whatever. So obviously family and health are the most important things. I 100% believe that. It doesn't mean that money can't also buy you happiness. Both of those things can be true. Like all those things can be true at the same time, in my belief. When I think we try to say, no, that has to be a separation. And that's, I think, the biggest mistake. So, I take it even a little different approach when I think about it. I think back to this one time when my mom's car broke down. I forget what it was, something with the brakes or something. And the part was, I don't know, this was in the early 90s probably. So the part was like $700, but that was like a fortune to us, right? She didn't have that kind of money to just all of a sudden go buy this part. So that affects your life greatly, right? If all of a sudden she can't drive us to school, she can't get to work, then she can't work. It compounds the fact that she doesn't have the money. So my thing always was, I always saw money as happiness is like the next level of it for me, but it was I just wanted the peace of mind. Yeah, I wanted to have enough money in my bank account where I never had to worry, because that stress being off of my shoulders is what created my happiness. Just never having to worry about it. I never had to worry about my bank account or whatever else. And then it's like, yes, then what else can I do with that? And I also get happiness in giving to others. So it's like 100%. There's all these other things you can do with money that can provide happiness that can still be good deeds. It doesn't have to mean that it's just, oh, I bought a new car, or I bought a bigger house, or I did these things, which even if that is what it is, if that's what makes you happy, who's anyone to judge?
And then this is two sayings that came to mind as you were talking. One is, if you think money can't buy you happiness, then you haven't given enough away to charity. That's the first saying. The second saying is, a little bit more vulgar, but not vulgar, but just brash, And I learned, Dan Pena says this. He's crazy. He goes, if you think money can't buy happiness, you don't know where to shop. So, I think basically, people think that money not buying happiness. Basically, I agree. I think you nailed it. It's a rationalization mechanism for people that don't have money, right? And justifying why they don't have money because, that doesn't buy you happiness, right? But I think they're completely separate things. I think you choose whether or not you're happy based on your demeanor, your values, how you treat others, how much you give back. So I would say money can't buy happiness is probably it's probably not true, and it's probably more accurate that there's two phases. It's probably there is, and studies have shown this, once you get to a certain level, like 100 and some thousand a year, it removes financial stress, right? So that's level one of happiness. Then you mentioned that. Having less financial stress, that is a form of happiness. Then there's another level, which is abundance. Not having stress isn't abundance. That's lack of pain. Abundance is, I can do what I want. I can use money how I want. I can pursue my passions how I want and on my own schedule, right? That's number 5. Money can't buy happiness. Number 6, investing is only for the rich. Okay, now I have a controversial kind of viewpoint here. I think this is actually in the traditional sense of the word investing, I think this is actually true.
In what way?
Okay. Investing in yourself, is it not the traditional usage of the word investment?
Okay.
Right? So, investing in your own skills, investing in, sales skills or techniques, right? That is not for the rich. That's for people on the come up and the rich. People on the come up end up, most times keeping those beliefs with them and the things that got them there as they become rich, right? But I actually do think there is a right time to invest in things outside of your core vehicle, right? So, example, like, I do think, okay, if I were to do a single unit real estate deal, right? Residential. If I were to do one flip, right? Or I would try to, flip or, renovate something and then rent it out. It's probably not as good a usage of my time to do that versus to buy a 20 to 100 unit complex where there's much more diversification. I'm not dependent on one tenant. I'm not dependent on one deal, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it probably is smarter in the traditional sense of the word of investing, which I define as investing in something outside of your core vehicle.
What's your core vehicle?
Your core vehicle is your core money-making. So
you're saying your job or your business.
Whatever your job is. You're probably better off just becoming better at what it is you're currently doing so you can make more money within that.
What was the quote again?
Investing is only for the rich.
But what about just investing in the stock market?
Probably better just investing it back in yourself, learning better skills. Because if you're only making $100,000 a year or $80,000 a year, it means your skills aren't high enough in some area, or the market isn't rewarding your skills high enough. So you probably are better off becoming more skilled, which would be investing in yourself, not investing in something external.
Again, I would just only argue that
we can disagree too.
Well, I disagree in a sense of it's subject to what you do.
Yeah.
So I think
if you're an investor.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying like in our, we run businesses, we're entrepreneurial. So in ours, we have a big upside in that investment in ourselves and growth and learning because it can produce greater outcomes for us.
Yep.
But again, maybe I just keep taking this the wrong direction, but as I think to other industries, like growing up, we were in a small town, so teachers didn't make that much money in our town. But I know like my one science teacher used to talk to us all the time about his just small investments in the stock market and stocks and bonds, and he was like, on track to be a millionaire by the time he was like 40, 45. But it was micro investments. He didn't have to do a ton. So that's the other misconception is if you start early, you can do little things.
Yeah.
So it's not, I just don't think that one's all or nothing. Like I think you can do little and do little over here. So you can have a little bit in you and a little bit in the market. You just do an index fund or basic, steady things.
What's Tony Robbins' book on investing? Go ahead.
Actually, I just listened to that one. I forget the name of it, but it's very good. But what I actually think is complete BS is the whole accredited investors thing. What are your thoughts on that? Where you have to make like $200,000 for 2 years in a row or have a net worth like $1 million to be able to invest in certain things. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't really understand why it exists.
Yeah, I think it's BS. I think it's a lock that hurts people that, if someone is intelligent enough, like it's, in my opinion, it's the government acting like you're a protector for no reason, where it's probably a lobbyist of some sort. There's probably some lobby group that doesn't want to open that capital door because maybe it's a less return or something at that point, less people to share at the top. So I think it's bogus. I think if someone wants to take that risk and they understand it, hopefully they understand it. If you want to make them go through some sort of training to understand what they're really getting into, great, fine, do that. But it's my money. I should be able to do what I want.
I think Tony Robbins' entire book, and he interviewed the smartest financial minds in the world for Money Master the Game, and I think Unbreakable is one of them called. Unshakable.
What's the new one?
The Holy Grail of Investing.
That's the one.
That's about private equity and how you invest in private equity companies, which is actually pretty cool.
It's very interesting.
But he said one of the number one things that he learned interviewing all the best financial minds in the world is that the number one magic number is what % of your income you shield away to invest, right? So what I'm saying violates what Tony is saying is the number one thing he learned from the smartest financial minds in the world. So all I can speak on is my own personal experience.
Yeah.
Right. So I understand that there's other, primarily a ton of opposing viewpoints for this, but in my own personal story, every penny I invested in myself or in my own business created a 3 to 20x return, and therefore for me to have invested in anything external would have been, for me, a terrible use of money. But I would agree, for most people who are more in a fixed career of sorts, without as much entrepreneurial upside, it probably is false that investing is only for the rich.
Yeah.
Right? It probably is true that anyone can invest and they can start today and just start small, like you said.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people underestimate what those small investments can build to at certain times. That's why people don't do it, because they think, oh, it's just for the wealthy, I'm not going to make money. But, I mean, you can run the math. There's calculators you can find online on compound interest. And if you start investing, right after college, very small amounts can add up to a lot of money.
Yep. So number 7, get-rich-quick schemes don't work. Okay? So I think there's two sides of this. Okay? I think there's one side of it that is false, and there's one side of it that's true. So the first thought I'll share is the only way to get rich is to get rich quick. Now, I say that, jokingly, but everybody in their lifetime, most people in their lifetime will make $1 million, right? $50K a year, 20 years, you made $1 million, right? So inherent in making more money is the speed at which you make money, right? So a person who makes $1 million in a year makes much more money than a person who makes $1 million in 20 years. So therefore, inherent in getting rich or making more money is speed. So there's only one way to get rich, and that is quicker. Right? So that's one way that would kind of debunk get rich quick. You actually do need to get rich quicker. You need to get more money faster, right? The thing that is not that get rich quick schemes don't work, that is true, is like the whole freaking Trader's Domain freaking Forex scheme that I invested in, $200,000, and this dude ends up being a complete fraudster because I was in a mastermind and heard all these people making so much money. Oh my God, I'm doubling my money every 4 months. I delayed for 18 months. Turns out it's a Forex Ponzi scheme.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's almost like the quote should say, what is it? Get rich quick schemes don't work. Is that what it says?
Yeah.
But it's like, don't work forever. It's like they can work actually for a very short period of time. All those Ponzi schemes are proof of that. Some of them work for many years. But if it's too good to be true, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, and that's why I think, like, what is actual get-rich-quick schemes? Like, in my mind, like, these, crypto, breakthrough crazy multiples, if it's in excess of what Warren Buffett's getting per year in returns, it's unlikely to be sustainable, to your point, right? So I could put $1 in and get hundreds of thousands of dollars. Probably applies to, a lot of crypto stuff. That probably applies to a lot of the shit you see on freaking Facebook where, like, oh, follow my 3-step system and learn how to invest online and do no work and like that stuff to me is like, that's get rich quick. That's an actual get rich quick scheme, which I really define as creating the perception that some magical thing is going to happen, without any data to back it up, right? Yep. Some magical thing is going to happen to transform your financial situation that is literally fraudulent.
It goes back to what you said earlier about laziness.
Yeah.
I think it's the people that are lazy and looking for shortcuts. It's really about shortcuts, right? It's not about getting rich quick. Because like
Yeah.
to your point, like a lot of people get very rich very quick and are very successful, and they did it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
But the people that try to take shortcuts to get there are the ones who don't succeed.
Yeah.
Right. Some of those MLMs, the course online people like you see that don't really have any history, but they're creative and they're committed, so they're out there faking it like they're these gurus, and then a lot of investments, obviously. And I think the other one that we need to, you're probably going to start seeing tied to this phrase or in parallel, is the passive income.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like passive income's now getting a bad name because of all these people
You have a
online
renter?
talking about that. Yeah.
Is that passive?
It's not
You
passive.
just
I was
you
on
just sit on a
yesterday,
beach? Yeah.
texting our repair guy because he never showed up. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
So we have to make the time. So are there truly passive incomes out there? Sure, but it's not a shortcut to get there, and not everything is passive the way people portray it to be. So I think that's another financial one that's going to be a big talking point later.
Yep. And that's why you got to be in love with the infinite game. Like, get rich quick. The only way you get rich quick is by gaining skills slowly and securely,
Yeah.
right? So like you're only going to see your bank account go up exponentially high in a short period of time as a reflection of a disciplined, consistent approach to building your skills to such a level where there's a tipping point where the market then showers you with rewards, right?
Yeah.
But there's all this, it's like people get praised in public for what they do in private, right? And that's where the rewards are not perfectly aligned in life and business and success. It's like you get applauded for something in public, but that moment of success was caused by years of discipline and consistency.
Yeah.
So like that would actually go against get rich quick. The only way you increase your income velocity is by carefully, consistently, disciplined building of your skills, All right, number 8. We got 3 more. Okay. Saving money is more important than making money.
That's probably the trickiest for me so far. Saving money is more important.
All right, if someone's making $60,000 a year, is that true? No, I don't think so. I think you gotta double your income.
Yeah.
I think it's,
I would agree.
Saving money is typically someone with a poor mindset's way of not improving their skills. Meaning, like, okay, I'm making $60,000 a year, let's just say. Okay. I need to focus on saving money. So I got to create a budget, and I got to, stop spending money in these areas. And that's all true and good, and you do need to do that if you're making that small amount of money. But what you're not focused on, but while you're focused on saving money, is how do I get better? How do I provide more value to the marketplace so that I deserve more money, right? So in the process of saving money, your paradigm is so short-term focused that you don't even see that there's other people in your same, neck of the woods who are making 3 times what you're making just with a different thinking process.
Right.
Then you don't have to save, you don't have to create crazy budgets when you're making 3 times as much more. Now, in business, saving money is more important than making money. That's probably true once you pass a certain, like we went through that.
Yeah.
Like I think it's probably over 12 months ago, where we had a severe cash crunch in our company because of how fast we grew. We went from nothing to, tens of millions of dollars in revenue in like a very short time window.
Well, and it's because, I won't mention the name of the company, but a company withheld some money that they shouldn't have withheld, right? Which put us in a much even tighter cash crunch.
Yeah.
Which is why saving is important, because there are going to be circumstances that pop up that you can't expect and you can't control sometimes. You have to be able to weather those storms.
I would say for us, like, making more money has always been the most important thing in business until you run out of money.
Yeah.
Then saving
Then
money
you wish you
becomes
would've
the most
saved more.
important
Yeah.
thing. But then now we're at a place where both are equally of high priority, right? Making money and saving money is at an equal priority. So I actually think the best way to reposition this belief is saving money and making money are both extremely important.
Well, yeah, and again, I think you go back to the individual you mentioned. I mean, taking that example I gave of my mom with the car, if we were able to have saved more money, we could have maybe had money for reserves for those things. So that's where I think it is important to a degree. But like you're saying, it also doesn't take away the fact that if you can continue to improve and work your way up to make more money, then you're able to also do other things. Your next thing you're able to save is easier to do. And so it's like, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think it's just the percentages, as you scale up.
Yeah. All right, second to last. All debt is bad debt.
That's 100% untrue.
Yeah. Why do you think?
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, right now I'm building you mentioned the real estate. I'm building wealth through real estate. It's something I always wanted to do, and I've been investing, over the past couple of years now, and, I've done a lot of that through debt, and that's fine. My tenants are paying off my debt. So it's building my net worth. I'm not now out of the money that I saved up money to put down initially, but I had to take on debt, but I'm already seeing the values of the homes increase, which is increasing my net worth. Down the road, I'll have assets that are worth a lot of money that I didn't end up paying for at the end of the day. I only paid a fraction of what ended up getting paid by the tenants. Taking on debt to expand your business clearly could be a great investment. Now you have to invest it wisely and know what you're doing with the money, but look at the most wealthy people in this world. And if you even you want to get really complicated. The ultra wealthy, the billionaires, the Zuckerbergs.
Oh, dude, it's so much
They
debt.
live off of debt tax free. They're the ones that, you hear these things where Zuckerberg can go get a, $50 million loan where he uses his Facebook stock as the collateral, and he just pays it back through his income throughout the year. So he's actually living on the debt, and he's living tax-free because of it.
Ready? So Elon, when he bought Twitter for $44 billion, $13 billion of that, even though he didn't need to, $13 billion that he had plenty of stocks he could have, of his shares of Tesla and everything else that he could have sold to have come up with that. But he still put $13 billion in debt, and he did another equity financing of $4 billion. So $27 billion came from him of the $44 billion, and the rest came from debt, even when he didn't need it. When you look at Google, when they make acquisitions, they still, even though they have, how much cash does Google have? It's like insane. Google cash balance 2023.
Well, it goes back to you just don't want to be, you don't want to have all of your money in one thing.
$24.05 billion cash.
Wow.
And
it goes back to that last one, right, with the savings versus making more money. I mean,
wait.
wait.
Marketable securities, ready? Total cash equivalents, and marketable securities. I undershot this big time. $110.9 billion.
Jeez.
Marketable securities means short-term securities, right? That they can liquidate quickly.
Dang. Yeah, I mean, it's good to have that cash to be able to do other things, right?
Yeah.
So you want to keep some because, again, I don't, so like when I did my one real estate deal, I did like what's the Burr method, if you're familiar with that. So, I bought the house, we rehabbed it, we got tenants in, and then we went to the bank and we refinanced so I could pull a bunch of cash back out. So it's like, short term I had a lot of cash in there, and then I was able to pull that money back out because I don't want to have all of my money into one thing. Yeah. Because what if that house, burned up or the tenants left or whatever? I at least have other cash now that I can go put in other things. So the debt was a great way to leverage my money around different properties.
So I think there's good debt and bad debt, right? Good debt is investing in your own business, getting money for your own business, so long as it's not a reaction to a bad business model.
Sure.
Mortgages that, especially with debt that others pay down,
Yep.
right? Good debt. Bad debt is, I want these $700 pair of shoes, and I'm going to put it on my 50% interest credit card, or payday loans and like crap like that, just so I can get a nice car that I can't afford. That's bad debt.
Yeah, I would say credit cards and vehicle payments are probably the two worst debts.
Yeah.
Credit card number one, because you can get $1,000 on a credit card that takes you 20 years to pay it off because of the interest, and you paid $14,000 back.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're doing that for short-term business, a lot of people put money on credit cards to launch their business. Okay, maybe that's a smart move in the early days, but pay it off fast. But too many people live just outside their means.
Yep.
They build up credit card debt. It's probably, this isn't statistic, but I would guess it's up there next to medical and student loan debt is the biggest reason people are in financial stress because they never get out. It's a very tough cycle to get out of. And the newest one you mentioned is cars.
Yeah.
Vehicles are
insane.
Going through the roof. I'm a car guy, but I've owned very few cars. I buy used cars all the time. So I don't go out. There's people that own, brand new Kias that are, 3 times the cost of my cars.
Yeah.
Because I buy such older used cars because I just think it's not worth the money when you drive it off the lot and you instantly lose, 15% value. Mm-hmm. And so it's a depreciating asset. I'd rather put my money, the debt should be tied to appreciating assets.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Then it's good debt.
Which leads to probably the best type of debt, which is myth or belief number 10, commonly held belief. Last but not least, education is the key to wealth. I would venture to say that of all of these, this is probably the most true. It's probably close to the harder you work, the more money you make. I would probably say that this is close tied to hard work. Education is the key to wealth, but it's probably closer on the side of true. The only risk that I have with this being true, little asterisk, is education isn't enough to get the job done. You can be the most educated person. I think the highest IQ person in the world is like a bouncer at a bar.
Oh, wow.
Like, at a nightclub or something. So having all the education in the world doesn't mean you're taking massive action, doesn't mean you're committed. It doesn't mean that you're,
Well, that person might not have been educated. They had the highest IQ or the highest. How far do they go in education, though? It's
I don't know.
Education.
Yeah. So and we'd have to define education. What type of education?
Yeah.
Is it real world education, or is it I learned theory?
That's another good one.
Formal education. Yeah. If you're a doctor, if you want to be a doctor or lawyer, then there's definitely a huge correlation of you earning wealth. If what you get is formal education that allows you to have a law degree or a medical license, right? So, but I think in the world of entrepreneurship, education is the key to wealth. I know it was the key to, education was the spark to my entrepreneur journey, but education doesn't get the job done. I had to grind, I had to experiment, I had to take massive action, I had to do everything before I was ready constantly for 4.5 years every single day. I had to feel imposter syndrome and just trudge through it, self-confidence, communication skills. So it's definitely not all education is my point.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned about the types of education is probably the most important part. So, I'm guessing the people that wrote these, list, they're referring to education meaning college, right? Which I think I did listen to a podcast the other week that said, yes, they did a study where it was like, how much people earned over the course of their lifetime. And yes, college educated earned more than non-college educated, masters, whatever, earned more than college or like undergrad. Mm-hmm. But I wonder when that study was done. Yeah. Because I also believe nowadays with the internet and all these online courses and all the education you can do on your own
Yeah.
without having to go to traditional secondary education.
Yeah.
Along with the rising cost of secondary education. So when I was like a kid, I mean, it was everyone preached that like the only way to make money was you had to go to college to be successful and make money. And now that's completely opposite. Yeah. And now a lot of kids are not going out. They want to be entrepreneurial. They want to go out and do their own thing. They want to learn. And because schools are, basically for-profit businesses, they're raising costs astronomically. So the level of student debt to the earning potential is lopsided now, right?
100%.
So that's going to have an adverse effect on wealth creation for educated. So I think if we did that same study 20 years from now, it's going to completely flop. I would say the value in education is more in real-world experience and learning outside of just education, unless you said like lawyers, doctors, things where it absolutely requires an education.
So we're creating our own university as a result of today's session. So don't let these moany beliefs hold you back. Go make some more money. All right, I'll see you in the next episode. Stay great.